Good afternoon. Welcome to Whips in the Dungeon. This is going to probably be part of my herd series. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Dex. I've been in the leather lifestyle for over 20 years, and one of my passions is to throw whips. And along the journey, I've collected many whips. At one point, I owned more than 70 single tails, and I spent about 6 months and thinned the herd down. And so, whips are expensive. They're handmade. Quality whips are made out of kangaroo, and craftsmen, whip makers can only make so many per year. So it's a rare occasion and a special occasion when you get to do an unboxing, and I'm going to share this unboxing with you. I just received a parcel from Australia via Australian airmail, and I will say that the Australians have improved over the years, because back in the day when I was buying whips from Mike Murphy, they didn't provide tracking, and you kind of kept your fingers crossed and hoped you got your whip. But the tracking was very good. I could tell when it hit customs in the US and when it was released from customs and about to be delivered. And so let me get a knife and let's get on with the unboxing. The whip is coming from Peter Thorndike, and so we're going to do a little unboxing of the Peter Thorndike Bullwhip and a mini review. I will say it's the first whip I've ever ordered from Peter Thorndike. He has developed quite a reputation for fancy plaiting and making stock whips, and actually winning some contests in Australia. So he's become to be a pretty well-known whip thrower and whip maker, but this is the first whip I've ever ordered from him. I've had some people recommend that I order whips from him. And I've also got a 4-foot Mike Murphy that I kind of use as my benchmark to judge other whips against. For those of you that know of Mike Murphy or have heard of Mike Murphy, you know that he's no longer plaiting, but for many, many years he was looked at as one of the premier plaiters in the world. Some consider him probably the best plaiter in the world, but that's best is always relative. So we've got a box that's maybe 18 by 10 with the airmail receipt on the outside, and it's showing a value of 600 Australian dollars. That's what I paid for the whip. I think that converts to about 545 or 56, something in that range, US, which is, to be honest, a little pricey for a whip. So maybe I'm paying for Peter Thorndike's reputation. And then inside, Australian government certificate form showing that it product was made out of red kangaroo. That's one of the Australian requirements. So that'll go in the file I keep on whips. You know, it's got bubble wrap. We pull the whip out. It was bound with some just scrap kangaroo lacing, which isn't uncommon. That's a pretty standard thing for whip makers to do. There's a business card. That's nice. So give me a second here and I'll get the lacing off. Make an attempt to anyway. We get the three different laces. Okay, we got two done, one to go. That one's just gonna slide off. And you can see the business card. Peter Thorndike, stock whips. I think Peter just started making bull whips a couple of years ago. And his website, his email address, and his telephone number. Very nice. Some whip makers include a small tub of conditioner when they'll ship a whip. This had no conditioner in it. That's probably just something that Peter doesn't provide. So this is a little 4-foot bull whip. I had specifically requested a 9-inch handle. I haven't measured that handle, but it looks like it's 9 inches. And I sent Peter a short video of this Mike Murphy whip and what I expect out of a quality bullwhip that I'm going to be able to throw in the dungeon. There's 4 quick checks I do, so I'll go through those with you, and then we'll compare those 4 checks, the Murphy against the new Thorndike. The first check is to run your hand down the descending cylinder of the thong, and you should feel no transitions, no bumps, and it's perfectly smooth. Then you check the rollout with the belly. A whip has a belly and a spine. We're rolling it with the belly. It should roll straight and target accurately. Okay, then I turn the whip over against the spine, and it's not going to roll out, but it's going to arc, and I want it to arc straight, not take a jog either way, even throwing it against the spine. That way, if you're targeting against the spine, it's still going to target accurately. My 4th check is to take about 18-inch radius of the thong and roll it 100 or 360 degrees around itself, and it should be able to maintain its arc without developing a kink. The hardest part of a 4-foot bullwhip is the second part of the thong, because you've got drops. You can see it's losing a little bit of its arc right over here as I roll it around against its spine, but it's very good. So that's Murphy. Murphy's whip had a 6-inch handle, which is standard for a 4-foot bullwhip. A 9-inch would be a little bit longer than what an average whip maker would do, but this Murphy wasn't a custom order. I bought it off the shelf from a vendor. But it's a great whip, and that's my benchmark. So let's look at the Thorndike. The Turk's head, also called the pommel. Some people call this a heel knot because it's the heel of the bullwhip. Is very nicely made. There's no maker's mark on the end of the Turk's head. Some whip makers will have a maker's mark here. I know Simon Martin does have a maker's mark. Benton Cassidy used to have a maker's mark, so that's not uncommon. But Mike Murphy didn't. He left his pommel clean, had no maker's mark. The plaiting work on the handle is very nice. It's kind of a combination of a checkered board and a bird's eye and some chevrons going on. Very nice. The pineapple knot is nicely done. It's very tight. There's no gaps in the plaiting. If we look at the thong with that first test, I'm going to run my hand down the whip. It's rolled very smooth, very smooth. I consider a 4-foot bullwhip harder to make than a longer whip because for a 16 plait whip, you have to start dropping strands, and every time you drop a strand or make a transition, there's a little bit of a transition right there. That's about where the one would have been in the Murphy as well. So let's roll it out. It's not broken in, but for a whip that's not broken in, it actually has a good natural rollout that's only going to get better as it gets broken in. Against the spine, it arcs straight and true, so it should be able to target either with the belly or against the belly. I call it throwing it against the spine. That last test I did, let's check the arc out. 360 around. It's pretty good, pretty good. Almost perfect. Nothing to really point out in a video. And this, it kind of makes an egg shape against the spine, where it's a little bit higher in the middle, but it didn't have that distinctive point over here where that last transition is. So that's actually better than the Murphy. Okay, I can tell you it's weighted and balanced about like the Murphy. I think when it gets broken in, it's going to throw very much like that Murphy throws. I'm going to get you up close to the plaiting here. I don't know if you can see the handle in the video. I don't have a videographer today. We're doing this all on our lonesome. I'll show you the plaiting and the thong. It's very, very nice, very nice. No gaps all the way down to the fall hitch or the keeper. The only thing I would say about this fall hitch, it's very aerodynamic, very tightly plaited, is if you get to a point where you're going to have to replace that fall is going to be very hard to replace with a fall hitch that's been plaited that tightly. That was the one hit I have against Murphy, is Murphy would make his fall hitch so tight that a normal human couldn't change the fall out. Out of 4 Murphy falls I've had to have replaced, they all 4 had to go to a whip maker. 2 of them went to Joe Strain, and 2 of them went to Casey Tyler to have the falls replaced, because this human couldn't replace the falls. And it's going to be many years before I have to replace this fall, because it's a brand new whip. But my prediction is when this fall ends up having to be replaced, it's going to have to go to a whip maker, because that was a little too tight. The fall is very narrow, very aerodynamic. The skiving is very nice. It's red hide. I had requested either red hide or Latigo. Peter chose to do it in red hide. We're going to see how this fall holds up. Typically red hide falls hold up very well. He finished it very nicely with kind of a brownish looking nylon cracker, which would be perfect if you were sport cracking. People ask me if I sport crack. I have sport cracked before, but I don't consider myself a sport cracker. My passion is for throwing whips in the dungeon. I have, of course, a Whips in the Dungeon channel on YouTube. I encourage everyone to check it out and subscribe. I also have a BDSM dungeon play channel, and we're doing a variety of things on that channel. Right now we're working on exploring caning. So dungeon play is my thing, but anybody that is interested in a short whip can learn something from this video. Short whips are considered any whip that's shorter than 6 feet in length. So this is a 4-foot bullwhip, but by the time you add the fall and the cracker, you've got about 6 foot total length, or maybe a little more than 6 foot total length. So the very first thing I do with a whip before I use it is I take the cracker that the whip maker made off. We're doing that right now. Gonna take this cracker off, and we're gonna put a Lady Sally cracker on it. Because in a dim lit space, indoor space, a black or brown cracker is very hard to see, and a white cracker is much easier to see. And then if the space happens to have some black lighting, the white just pops. So we're gonna replace it with a white Lady Sally cracker. Let me set that crack real quick. Okay, so even with just a thumb push, a bow and arrow thumb push, that whip rolled out and cracked nicely. I'll do a whole nother video where I actually do some throwing with the whip so you can see what the whip looks like. This is a fabulous whip. The price point is a little bit high. If someone inquired of me, I could send you to other whip makers that make quality whips that aren't going to be quite as much as this. But right out of the box, I would say this is equal to, certainly equal to the quality whip that Mike Murphy makes. And I'm very pleased with it. So a big thank you to Peter for making me a great whip. And I hope everybody that watched this video will thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you're 18 years or older, and enjoy throwing whips.